one case or one scenario that I'm seeing is that a devotee has a personal challenge. Maybe it's an emotional challenge or some conditioning from the past. It could be past traumatic experience. Something in their life is affecting them currently in a way that just following the strict, straight path in every situation is not possible. And so sometimes they will express that to their leader. It could be the temple president, could be the Bhakti Vriksha leader, could even be their spiritual master, initiating spiritual master or Shiksha Guru. And in some cases, that leader doesn't really understand how the devotee will be affected by following this instruction. I mean, negatively affected. And so they try to explain it, and the teacher says, it's just your mind, or you just have to surrender, or you just don't understand, which in many cases could be true. But in some cases, it's not true. It's actually a past problem that they're dealing with, psychological issue, perhaps emotional issue, which makes it difficult or impossible to follow a particular instruction, and actually would cause more damage to them to try to follow it. So if we are surrendered devotees, as we're trying to be, our first go-to thought was, well, there must be something wrong with me. I really should try to follow it. But there's always, not always, but often, there's this voice inside of us which is saying, this is not healthy. I can't do this. I don't think I should do it. And then we get caught in this problem because the authority wants us to do it, and we feel bad that we can't do it. Or maybe we feel guilty. Maybe we even are full of shame or depressed or some very heavy negative emotion. Self-berating, oh, I'm so bad I can't follow this instruction. At the same time, sometimes you feel that really the best thing would not be to follow this instruction. So what do? And how do I explain that in a way that doesn't violate the principle of submission to authority, at the same time protects you from avoiding doing something or doing something which would damage you? So the basic message that I want to offer you is that in an organization like ISKCON, which is very, very big, you have many different kinds of leaders with different life experiences. And not every leader understands all the conditions of the people or the students that they're teaching. I'm part of a group. We've discussed this. This was discussed even amongst gurus. Sometimes we don't always understand the condition of a disciple. We expect certain behavior. When we don't see it, then we think they're not surrendered, but that may not be the case. And that we have to ideally understand better how to deal with different devotees with different challenges. But sometimes you're going to get a leader that just doesn't understand. And although the solution would be to perhaps give you some guidance, psychological guidance, you can't expect every leader to do that. And normally what you'll get is Shastric guidance, which is the duty of leaders to give. But in some cases, that Shastric guidance actually makes it worse because it needs some softening or adjusting, or it's not applicable. And you know that, you can sense that, or you're convinced of that. What do you do? How do you deal with that? It's difficult. It's difficult in some situations, especially if the leader is not able to understand where you're coming from, or reluctant to understand, or thinks that you're in Maya, you're not being surrendered, and so forth. My only message is, don't do anything that's self-destructive in the name of surrender, because I've seen many, many devotees surrender themselves right out of Krishna consciousness, right out of bhakti, because they burned out. They tried to do something, but they couldn't do it. Their other god brother, god sister, no problem, they could do it. But they personally couldn't do it. So when you understand that this situation would be bad for you, or you have a very strong gut instinct that this is going to be bad, listen to it. If your leader doesn't understand, talk to someone else. There will be other devotees who understand and will sympathize and say, will agree with you. Yes, I think you're making a right decision. And you will have to explain that to your leader in the most humble of ways, or some other devotee will have to explain it to them. But don't destroy yourself in the name of surrender. Do not surrender yourself out of ISKCON. That would be foolish. And so, in a big organization, sometimes, although we have so many protectors in terms of our guides and gurus, sometimes we actually have to protect ourselves. We've also seen this in marriage. You have a nice man, good devotee, but a bit handicapped in understanding women. And then he does things which are not good for his wife. And then as leaders, we look at the situation and we're thinking, what's actually happening now is I have to intervene because the man who's supposed to protect the wife, I have to protect her from the man who's supposed to protect her because he doesn't understand her. It's very, very common. I have made these mistakes myself. I'm not pointing the finger at anyone. When I was a younger devotee, I think I made every mistake you could make. And I didn't always understand devotees. I had a difficult time understanding the nature of women. And sometimes would do these things also. We're learning, we're all learning. But sometimes you may realize that, well, the leader doesn't really understand me and I need to protect myself. And sometimes that means, I hate to say the word, disobeying. Not really disobeying, because ultimately you're obeying your conscience. And Prabhupada said, ultimately the Guru wants you to be able to hear Super Soul in your heart. But of course, we would say, if you're a young devotee, you're not following your Guru, then that's disaster. And generally it is. But in some cases, it has been seen, and I know this sounds strange, that following the Guru has created disaster. Hare Krishna. I'm not talking about a Guru who's fallen. There's nothing wrong with him. It's just he doesn't understand your particular situation or your challenges. Hare Krishna.